Welcome to the Stack Supplement Podcast, the premier source for supplement news and reviews.
Welcome to another edition of the Stack Supplement Podcast, and we have another interview for you with a longtime friend and a guy you'll know hopefully know from some other brands out there. It is Greg Helton from his new brand, Nutra Innovations. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shane.
So we knew you as the people in the industry knew you as the guy from Muscle Sport, Kodiak, and all the brands under that umbrella. But you recently switched to a new company, start of the new year, who I actually hadn't heard of until you mentioned it to me. In Nutra Innovations. Do you mind giving a bit of a background on the brand?
Yeah. So Nutra Innovations is I would consider it realistically only about a year old. So in January, we kind of just did a relaunch of it. It's attached to a pretty well-known manufacturer in the industry. It does a lot of work for a lot of the major brands that you've seen. So one of the things that the owner of the company has never really dived into in recent years, is a front-end brand. So we had known each other for a little bit, and I love the products that he manufactures for. He's I know you would know a lot of the brands that he manufactures for. I heard a lot of good things about him in the industry, and just we got to talking, and it was an opportunity that came up where he wanted me to, come on and see what we could do with Nutra Innovations. So do a full rebranding, a full relaunch, and then just kind of grow it, man. So I got in ground floor. I thought the opportunity was great. It's kind of exactly my wheelhouse. I love taking things from almost nothing and building for a little while. So I jumped on the opportunity. Nothing bad with Muscle Sport. I love those people. I love the owner. I love my team over there. Just one of those things where I kind of had to move on. I figured that I was getting a little bit capped out where I was. And I don't know, I just saw a really good opportunity, and, it's a remote position for now, but I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling. So yeah, that's where we're at.
You've come in at president, which is one of the highest positions I can imagine you'd be able to attain anyway, and under a brand outside of your own. Right. See, I thought it was quite new. Because again, I know there are a lot of brands out there that I don't write about or know of on Stacked, and it's just sometimes someone will come to me and say something, and I'm just like, never heard of you, and they've been around for 10 years. Still surprises me. And Nutra Innovations, I hadn't really heard of them, but the lineup that you relaunched with in January was pretty extensive. When I first took a glimpse at the social, it was very much epitome driven, all the flagship products. But then when you dive into it on the site, you guys have a pretty extensive lineup, and a pretty detailed one. I think you guys have Tudka under your lineup, correct?
Yeah. Tudka is one of our standalone products.
I think it's just when you look at the flagship products like the Epitome pre-workout and a few of the others, and then you can go, when you see a brand that goes as deep as a standalone Tudka, you kind of get an idea on where it lies in terms of, formulations, advancedness, and all that stuff. And so it's the other thing I thought was interesting is that Epitome is fucking loaded. I don't know how I didn't hear about that thing.
Right. Well, so that's the thing. So Chad, the owner of CCB, which is our manufacturer, Chad never, he had the brand, and he would sell it into a couple brick and mortar stores here and there, but he never really took it. CCB was growing at such a rate that he didn't have a team or time to run the brand. Yeah. So it never really went anywhere. Don't get me wrong. The products are great. The formulas are incredible. It's just, there was no attention paid to it. So that's kind of where I come into the picture. But yeah, it's extensive for a brand that's not really out there yet. And I think by the end of this year, you're going to see that extensive is not even the word to describe what we're about to do. So we're coming close to, before the end of the year, probably doubling the line in terms of products.
Isn't it already at somewhere in the double digits? I thought it was 10.
Yeah. So I think we have 13 standalone products.
Shit. So you're looking to go, because
we're going to be around 20 or so before the end of the year.
Well, damn. You better get on your bike. We've got 9 months left.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So our first product launch is going to be.
Well, you can't. You can't forget about Epitome Epitome Hardcore. That just dropped. That was new, wasn't it? And it was.
That one's brand new.
That one again. I think that was a nice one to do right out of the gate. When you came on board, I was like, I'd like to see something fun. I'd like to see something exciting. And what's more exciting than a hardcore version of Epitome, which, as I said, was already a pretty packed out product, and you went a little more hardcore on the stems, and you made it retail exclusive. I thought that was pretty cool.
Right.
Pretty cool move.
Yeah, so it's brick and mortar exclusive. We are allowing a couple of our accounts to sell it online, but you have to have a brick and mortar store to qualify. So like, we're not going to sell that to anyone who's online exclusive.
Yeah, I've seen a few brands do that one.
Yeah, so it's more, it's one of those things where I just thought it was perfect timing. I mean, like 2020 beat the hell out of brick and mortar retailers, especially in our industry. So I mean, what we could like, we want to do something a little bit cool right out of the gate, which is drop something insane that everyone's looking for and try to target it to just, you know, helping out store owners and people that really took a hit. Cause I mean, I don't know how, I know you talk to a lot of brands in the industry, so brands have been able to shift to direct to consumer, but for a lot of these stores, especially the ones out here in New York and all my guys on the West Coast, absolute nightmare with all the shutdowns, and they're still dealing with it.
Yeah, I think it's well, brands were already transitioning to the direct to consumer, and whether or not they were doing it to get online sales, I know a lot of them like the idea of going direct to consumer, as they described, basically controlling the shopping experience from the first purchase to when it gets to them, to when they open it, to advice, to follow-ups, to stacks. And so they're controlling that end user experience. Whereas online retailers, I know that brick and mortar sort of, they relied on that advantage over online stores because they're like, hey, why wait 2-3 days? Get it, come down to the store and grab it. I think that was, and then obviously the lockdown, which I don't think anyone could have imagined would become.
No, I don't think anyone could plan for it. It's, you know what, it like for brands, it happened to have hit at a time where a lot of people were already pivoting towards direct to consumer.
I think a lot of them were already doing the move.
Right, exactly. So it sped things up. It forced people to invest a little bit faster than they probably wanted to. And it probably forced a lot of brands to make some mistakes in doing so, but it was going to happen whether it was short term or long term.
I don't think I saw any brands open an online store. The only one I saw do it majorly, I think, was Popeyes in Canada. They kind of opened like an online store sort of. I'm pretty sure it was them, or if it wasn't them, was some other brick and mortar Canadian retail. I think it was Popeyes. And they were, because they were all very heavily brick and mortar. They even have like exclusive value sizes. And I think when they did that, it was, everyone was hit pretty hard. And I think in 2019, no one would have fucking guessed.
Nope,
even if you had said some pandemic's going to hit, you wouldn't think everyone would be
shut down for 12. What are we going on now? It's going to be 13 months, right?
It's a fucking year. It's insane. And still, I mean, it feels like a year wasted, but it was still a fun year.
It was, and it was a learning experience. It was one of those things where, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of people got hurt, a lot of people like in the business, but like it's one of those things where it separated people who knew how to pivot and knew how to adjust to what's going on. And like, it might've been thrown in the deep end, but this is what business is and brand building is. So
it was a huge curveball. I mean, we just sat down at home, did as much as we could. I think we did that's why one of the reasons we bought that back the expo, I was sort of hoping to get some excitement going, get some fun going at an extremely difficult time. But so you're saying you plan on doubling the lineup, and
just about.
How many of these are we talking? Because you already have categories covered, right? Like, I mean, if you were missing an amino and a pre-workout and a fat burner, I would be saying, oh, you know what, you could fit fucking 12 more in there. But you're going to double. Can I guess that you are doing more hardcore versions?
We're not actually. Some of the categories we're going the opposite way.
So they're all. No, sorry, not hardcore. I mean, like how you have Epitome hardcore. Are you going to be doing like a burn,
like an extension of an existing SKU?
Yeah,
not quite. So, like for instance, we have Amino Prime. So Amino Prime is a super simple formula. All that is Instaminos and natural caffeine. So what we're doing, like the first one that we're launching is going to be a more comprehensive EAA. So it's a fully dosed and fully transparent label EAA. We're going to be adding Aquamin to it. We're going to be adding pink Himalayan salt. So we're kind of going in the direction
deeper
of,
into categories like the hardcore, but just
yeah,
not
we're
necessarily
expanding
that.
into more premium products. So we're going to be doing the same thing on the pre end too, because Epitome Hardcore, and Mach 9 are all extremely strong products. So we are going to be bringing in kind of like a mid-level pre-workout at some point. Whether we're going to reformulate Mach 9 or we're going to just bring it in as an additional SKU, we haven't really decided yet. But we want to fill some holes in the industry.
Interesting. So we're looking at a whole. I wouldn't guess that. That's a lot of products.
And of course, we're coming out with a protein. So
that was the other thing. That would be the only big one you're missing from. But protein these days, it's weird because 5 years ago, it was all about 4 pounds, 5 pounds, 2 for 1, whatever the hell, and it was value. And then
right,
maybe 17 around when Ghost kind of came about, and I think even Muscle Sport to some extent, you started seeing just 2 pounds, 2 pounds, 2 pounds, and now you're having trouble finding 4s and 5s from brands.
Right.
It's all
there's
the 2s.
A reason for it though. So in like my opinion, for what we did at Muscle Sport, and I think what a lot of newer brands in the industry are doing is diving into more unique flavors. So, for a consumer online, if they're trying a new brand, they don't necessarily want to jump into like a 67 or a 70 serving product. So it's a lot easier to get those unique flavors. Like, think about it. Like when we were back in 2015, when we launched, Cinecrunch, that's one of those things where people are like, oh, what's this going to taste like? It's got pieces of cereal in it. So like, you don't really want to invest in a 3-month product at that point. So,
but it's kind of like, it's still weird to me because I was in early 2010s. It was brands were doing the 5 pounds and then they came out with the 4 to make it seem like a 5 pound size, but value was such a driving factor. And even then you had unique flavors to some extent. S'mores, I guess, was kind of a unique thing. And you had a couple other interesting ones, but for me, it's just weird because protein is such a value thing, right? People take it 2 scoops a day, you go through it. I think it's because I buy it for the value aspect. I never buy protein like, where's the most unique flavor? Because for me, I guess it would be like if I went and bought a pre-workout and it was $20 and 10 servings, but it was a unique flavor, probably wouldn't give a shit.
Exactly, yeah.
But protein, there's just this trend where brands have jumped on that unique flavor trend, and to make it, I guess, accessible and cost effective, they've put it in a 2 pound.
Right.
And they're still priced, again, compared to a 5 pound. Some of these proteins are at like 35, 45, and then the 5 pounds sit at like twice as much for 50 and 60. It's crazy.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, and the other thing is really, I guess it's all an innovation too, right? So as far as our industry is being over-regulated, in my opinion. So it's very hard to innovate in terms of formulas now, especially because everyone wants everything fully transparent. So like, I don't want to say that innovation on the formula end is dead, because there's plenty of, patented, there's plenty of great formulas out there. Like Ghost is a good one. Ghost does a lot of what I would consider, how do I put this, mainstream formulas, like formulas that would work for everyone, but they do a good job of bringing some unique ingredients, some trademark ones, some patented ones there. So I don't want to say innovation's dead, but I think it's a lot harder to innovate on the product side of things, especially for newer brands. So one of the ways to do that is with brand culture, limited releases, unique flavors, things like that. So I think that's why you're going to see it continue and increase, especially in introductory brands.
Yeah, I think it was 2016, 17, people were asking me what's one of the trends, and I said limited flavors, like jump on limited flavors. You guys were doing it, Muscle Sport was doing it at the time. There are a few others jumping on it, and I was just like, it's genius. It's kind of like the phones. People never bought phones every year until they got a brand new one. And
now you want the new one, right? Yeah.
Until like they were releasing them every year, and you were like, shit, I want that new camera, right? And so with these new flavors, people would, you know what? I'll buy a 2 pound for the next month because that unicorn rainbow thing sounds crazy.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes that kind of like cultural thing too, where, you create a brand reputation with your other flavors and everyone knows that they're good already. Yeah. So, you're a little more willing to try the more crazy, unique ones that are out there. So, and it's cool. Everyone wants to be part of it. And the goal of building a community is you want everyone to want to post your product and be proud to use it. So
with the with that in mind, would it be good to assume that the flavors of your protein under Nutra Innovations, because I know that when I said this to you at the time, when I was like, you're one of the first to put cereal in a
right.
protein powder cereal pieces, and you're like, oh no, there was another one that did it. But I mean, I did. No one did it. Well, no one
Right.
really knew about it until you did it, and it started going everywhere with Lean Charms.
Yeah.
And uh, are we going to be getting? How do I phrase this?
Inclusions.
Not necessarily inclusions. Are we going to get inclusions, or have you come up with something else that is another new twist again? Because people always say that to me, oh, it's game changing and it's innovative, and I'm like, nah, look, dude. I mean, the first person to do the inclusions and the cereal piece as well, that's the one who kind of created. If you do a cereal that's never been done before or whatever, I don't really care. It was the concept. Is it possible that Greg has come up with another industry leading concept, or is it too early to say?
Without giving away too much, in September, we're going to our first launch of the proteins. We're going to be launching 4 flavors. One of them is going to be relatively unique, but I wouldn't say industry changing in the way that you're talking about. But we do, before the end of the year, we do have something launching that I think it's going to turn a lot of heads. So yeah, in a short answer, yes, I think so.
Because again, like Jacked, they came out with the DMA pre-workout, but you never really saw anything on that level again.
Right.
And I know flavor concepts is similar, so I'm sort of like, you know what? Maybe you've got something cooking. Maybe you're going to do it again. I kind of like watching those things. At least whoever does the follow-up to the original idea.
For sure.
And I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, like I think so. I told you how that happened at Muscle Sport, right? With the first, the inclusions that we had, where it was actually an accident that we got into the cereal flavors. So we were doing R&D for s'mores, and our purchasing guy had ordered the wrong marshmallows. So they ended up delivering like kilos of the multicolored marshmallows. So I thought it'd be funny to sign a Lean Charms label. And then it was just one of those things where everyone in the office was like, we should do this. So that's how the cereal series was born in the first place. It was a complete accident. So we were actually looking to just get regular marshmallows for the inclusions and s'mores, and that's really it. So I mean,
s'mores was one of the more creative ones that was like long before. I think Muscle Farm was one of the early ones to do that.
Right. Well, I mean, realistically, like s'mores to me is not a flavor; it's a texture thing, right? So like s'mores is graham cracker, chocolate, and marshmallow. So how do you, without adding some sort of like a texture to it? Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to put that
just in show. But
I've had that problem. People would send me a story and say, "Look, we got an industry first flavor. It's like sweet, delicious strawberry and raspberry, fucking cocktail or something." Right. And they're like, "Oh, there's never been an alcohol inspired or a cocktail inspired flavor with these two things in it." I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to be able to tell the difference between this and just a strawberry. It's very difficult to like communicate too much and that was my issue, I guess, with bodybuilding.com's remix flavors, the Hostess ones.
Yeah, the Hostess ones.
They were good. Like, don't get me wrong, they tasted nice, but I wouldn't have, like, if you had put that in a blank tub and I drank that, I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, that's Twinkies.
Well, so that's the thing, is that it's not, Twinkies to me is like, the value in that was more in the collaboration, not in the actual flavor itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, that's, again, it's one of the things that I think that Ghost does really well. So with their collaborations, like they're authentic. Yeah, so when you're doing a Chips Ahoy collaboration, like they're working with Chips Ahoy on that flavor, and that's what separates it, I think. So if you're kind of just trying to do it like the way I think the remix flavors did on bodybuilding.com, that was for hype, in my opinion. That was just to, turn some heads. I think it worked too. And don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a bad idea. But if you were to call that like pound cake and whipped cream, no one's going to budge. You know what I mean? Like,
you could have even got away with like a sweet vanilla or even something.
Right, because I didn't taste it. So, and to be honest with you, I don't really know like what a Twinkie tastes like other than just vanilla cream and
I had never had a Twinkie
flavor?
before, but I specifically went out and purchased Twinkies and the cupcakes because I hadn't had them before,
Yeah.
and then had them side by side.
Yeah,
So,
well, yeah, it's what you have to do, right?
and I
So
was just like, okay, don't get me wrong, it tastes good. It just doesn't taste like this other thing, and I
right.
wouldn't connect the dots. But yeah, I think the inclusions that you did back with Lean Charms was arguably changed the industry. Some people would be like, no, like we were thinking about it anyway, or blah blah blah. And it's like
Yeah.
I put it down to Lean Charms.
Right. At the time, I think we were the first ones to use inclusions, but we weren't the first cereal flavor. I think First Form has had CTC for a while.
Yeah, I think
So
you're
I
telling
think
me.
they were the first ones to drop a cereal flavor. I do think we were the first ones to throw inclusions in. I'm not sure.
There were brands that had done like inclusions of like chocolate chips and
Right.
marshmallows, but I think it was the fact that you went off base with yours and put
Right, like real cereal pieces.
yeah.
And, right.
And then to be honest, I feel like that's what's led to all these cereal flavors
For sure.
and just all the big brands that are doing them now. It was cool to see. So you're saying you got a protein powder, and I was going to touch on the epitome, like you were saying about reworking or reorganizing your pre-workouts, because you do have three, and all three of them are are they all stimulant based?
I would say the epitome is kind of like a full performance base, but it is higher stim. So there's about 400 milligrams of caffeine in there. So they're all high stim, no matter how you.
I was going to say, so because you would be one of the few brands that I would say that has 3 pre-workouts, and one of them isn't stim free or like.
Right.
It's become a bit of a trend, whereas years ago, well, not even years, not that long ago, it was stim free, stim.
Right.
And that became the norm. Now people got moderate stim, high stim, stim free.
Exactly. And that's yeah.
I think and you've got 3 stims, because I think it would be cool to see like a rework, not too much to the extensiveness of like Cellucor, how they have C4 Extreme, C4 Ultimate, C4 Dynasty, and they have that nice build up, but
right.
It's become pretty common to have a variety of pre-workouts. But at the same time, one of yours is brick and mortar exclusive. I know Glaxon did pretty similar with the GFY. I think that one was also more intense, retail exclusive.
Right.
Are there any products of all the what is it, like 12 you're saying you got the next year? Is there any that you're is there one that you're more excited about than any of the others?
Man, there's 2 that I'm excited. The protein I'm extremely excited about because first of all, it's going to be super clean. So we're doing a pure whey isolate. Yeah. We're going to be using an ingredient in our protein that is currently not in any other protein on the market.
I was literally about to say Velocitol, because I was like,
Velocitol. So I was thinking about Velocitol.
Everyone kind of throws it in, and then everyone gets deterred from it because apparently you have to add the extra macros or something.
Yeah, you have to add extra macros to it, and it's I mean, it's been done before, and I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of it, because we were potentially thinking about using it back when I was at Muscle Sport also, and I don't remember the reason why we ended up not doing it, but so that was in my head when we were formulating the whey isolate now. But so the ingredient that we're going to use, it is in supplements already, but it has not been used in a protein yet. So,
are you 100% certain of that?
100%.
Interesting, because I've seen I've seen some weird shit mixed with protein powder.
Yeah, no, this one makes sense. It's not just thrown in for no reason, but it's
okay.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited about it.
And
so other than that, the other product that I'm super excited about, it's probably the last one that I'm able to give you information on, is we're doing a powdered thermo. So it's going to be kind of like an intermediate stim powdered fat burn.
That I would say is the other category that it's become normal to have multiple in.
For sure.
Like
stim free. Yeah.
Well, I think
so. The first one that we're launching is going to be stimulant based. It's not going to be too crazy on a stim where you take it instead of a pre-workout, but it'll be good for pre-cardio. And then we're toying around the idea of launching basically the same formula without stimulants though.
And so the current capsule fat burner you have, that will stay?
Yeah, that's going to stay. The current capsule fat burner right now, it is a prop blend, but that is one of the strongest things I've ever taken in my entire life. So again, it's not exactly what I would call your introductory fat burner.
Yeah.
So
It's one of the old school ones that's just flat out stems and
yeah, Shane, I'll send
yeah.
you one. Hopefully we get on a Zoom call when you try it again, see if you can make it through an entire podcast.
My problem with those, the high stem fat burners, is they work like crazy because you sweat like a son of a bitch, and you take it twice a day, and you just pour in, and it you know, I hate the saying the fat drips off, but it does feel like it does when you have these things. But obviously, it's not as comfortable as something you can take before a workout, take to power you through the day and stuff like that.
So this isn't one of those products I would take on my way to the office.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I mean, like, I'm sure there are people that can do it, and you know, but you're not gonna have a good time.
Yeah, the fat burner category, I think, is just another one that it's become normal. Like Core they have 2 stem fat burners,
right?
And then they have 3 non-stems. Yeah, they have 3 non-stems. Or is it 2 non-stems? I mean, it's very become common these days to just have that variety of fat burners. So I think it's cool that you guys are really hitting on those areas. And I'm still lost for count as to how the fuck you're squeezing in 12 or 13. I'm doing the math in my head. So even if you've got a protein, 2 fat burners.
Well, there's going to be, not including flavor extensions, there's going to be at least 7 individual products.
Oh, okay. So some of those doubles are going to be new flavors for.
And well, some of them are going to be launched next year also, like in the first quarter of next year.
So. But they'll still be like revealed and stuff like that.
Yeah. We'll be talking about them or teasing them or whatnot, but yeah. Don't want to go too crazy the first year.
No, you don't want to go too crazy. You just want to double the size of your lineup, which again, I find that as a brand because you've been around for fucking ages, like myself, and
8 years, almost 9 now.
Because you would have seen back in the day when like Stacked had almost nothing to talk about with one product from one brand.
Now you guys can't keep up, right?
I have trouble keeping up. I have to be selective. And how hard do you think it is, especially coming to Nutra Innovations, which, as you said, had an extensive lineup, but wasn't really trying to keep up with anyone or anything? Right. Is it? Do you see it as a pretty tough challenge, like trying to, because at this time to stay relevant, you kind of almost have to have. I always tell people, you got to have a new flavor or at least teasing something every week or two if you want to stay up in that realm of these brands that are just so fast paced. How has production manufacturing become more efficient, or like compared to when you started as compared to now, or you just got to put in a shitload more effort and just like, I mean,
it's a mix of both. And fortunately I'm lucky the same way that, Muscle Sport was, we're vertically we are a manufacturer, which makes it a little bit easier for us to constantly be R&Ding new things. I mean, if you're talking about a brand that has to work with a contract manufacturer, it's not going to be as easy for them to test new flavors every day, to test new concepts every day, to throw together different formulas and things like that. So we can do it a little bit faster than most can. Because of that, it makes it a little bit easier to kind of stay in the news cycle or keep people excited about the brand. And again, like I said, I mean, the brand's about a year old, but I consider it 2 months old since we did a relaunch. But, so one of the things that we're trying to do is, and like you said, you don't have to be teasing something or dropping a new product every week or two. But for me, it's more like the brand just needs to be doing something pretty often. So whether it's product launches or like we're coming out with the first scoop, which is kind of like our beta testing program. So something like that, where we're just kind of bringing, because what I want to do is, I think one of the coolest things I heard from anyone was, you own the company, but like your customers or your consumers, they own the brand. And I think that's cool, because what we want to do is we want to bring our consumers or our retail partners or our distributors into the process at the complete ground level. So what we're doing now is with this first scoop program, like I'm getting products sent to me up in New York. And if I consider them good enough to at least go into like our second round of testing, I'm sending it out to a couple of our VIP consumers. I'm sending them out to our top 10 to 15 to 20, retail customers. It's going to our athletes and our influencers. So, as much as we're going to be teasing things, we're kind of like, we're not going to drop a product unless our consumers have already tried it and said, this is awesome, we want to go to market with it. And we just want to make it a little more public than your normal like focus group type of thing.
Interesting. And that's sort of the first scoop, and people will just basically be able to sign up for that straight up, right?
Yeah, so on the consumer end of things, I'm going to be starting a private Facebook group that's going to be invite only, but you can be invited by other members in the group. You're going to have to basically stay active in the group to keep your status in there. And then if you're part of that list, that like VIP list that engages with us, orders product or at least supports the brand in some way or another, we're going to be doing things where we're going to be sending you guys out new products every time we come up with one. So it's not just going to be new products. It's going to be like if we're dropping a single flavor of something, that's going to be available too. And then on the retail side of things, it's going to be a little less organized. It's going to be one of those things where we're going to send them out to our top guys or basically anyone who requests it. So anyone who we're considered kind of like a real partnership with is going to be part of the process.
Did you toy with the idea of sort of, I guess, charging for that or setting a price, or is it just you were just like, nah, screw it, let's just do it free straight out?
It's one of those, it's one of those things that we want to just bring people in on. I don't want to turn it into a sales tactic. I want people to be excited about our launches, and I want people to feel like they're part of the culture, which a lot of brands talk about it. Like if you think about it, it's, some of the best brands in our industry are that way because of their culture. And one of the things I've been toying around in my head lately is kind of like people over products. So we're a manufacturer, and Chad, who's the owner of the company, is an absolute genius when it comes to formulation. So I'm not worried about the products. Obviously, we're going to need to do some research and get some feedback for what people want. And when holes get created in the market, how do we fill those? But my thing is like, how do we build a culture? How do we bring people onto the team or part of the process that want to be there? So I think that's more important than anything else at this point.
Interesting, because I know Raise does the energy drink Raise. They do pretty much, they do kind of similar, but theirs is I think it's like a paid subscription type thing, and they very, very similar. Although theirs is obviously a lot more difficult because you're testing actual energy drinks, so it's probably not going to be as frequent as yours or as easy as not easy, but as difficult as putting together a batch of energy drinks. But yeah, that's a really cool idea. I don't think I've seen a sports supplement company do that off the top of my head. I'm trying to think of, I mean, you have the ambassador programs and stuff like that and the affiliate stuff, and those guys get to try things, but I don't think there's something a brand that I can recall who's, I guess, as you say, put I guess, customers and fans on the same level as formulators and flavorers and the brand's employees. So that's pretty cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, one of the other things that we're going to be doing, and we're probably going to start this with the protein. It's funny you mentioned Raise, because I know they did it with one of their flavors a while back. Kodiak did it too, way back in 2016. So we're going to crowdsource one of the flavors of our original protein launch, which it's cool to do. And it's one of those things where brands that don't have a contract manufacturer attached to them are going to have a little bit of trouble doing things like this. But so we want to do it. I don't think it's been done in protein before. I know Kodiak did it with a pre-workout. Raise definitely did it with Voodoo, if I'm not mistaken.
Raise has done it with, they did it with Voodoo.
They've done it with a couple, but I think they started it with
they did start it with Voodoo. And then they did it with, there might have been one in between. And then there was South Beach.
Right.
There have been brands that do it, but I don't want to be stink, but it's tricky because sometimes there's these processes where brands get people to vote, but you don't know if they're actually voting for the thing.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, like, don't get me wrong, if we have some, it's
hard. It's hard because when you look at it from the outside, you're like, oh, cool, we're voting. Oh yeah, that's the one I voted for. And then it ends up and you're like, you win. But then it's these brands that make it seem a little bit too obvious that your fan didn't count and they had already kind of decided.
Right. You've already decided. Right. So, I mean, that was hard because when we did it with Kodiak, it was kind of the same thing where we're like, wow, this one didn't get voted for and we know we can nail this flavor, but we had to go with this one instead. That one actually turned out, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was our sour raspberry flavor. And it turned out really good, but there will be that mix.
I mean, you guys obviously having the manufacturer on it's going to be authentic. It's going to be real. I think those kinds of fans will definitely appreciate that. I think you should definitely put the flavors together and sort of sample them on lives and stuff like that, just to further prove. Because that's always something that bugs me when I see these contests and I'm like, people will be cheering on a flavor and it doesn't even come close to the final lot. And I'm just like, well, this seems a bit fishy. And I'm
right. I mean, That's, if not that I have the entire thing fleshed out right now, but essentially it'll be a couple different rounds with the crowdsourcing. So kind of like your idea first, and then internally we'll pick top 10, and then we'll vote it down to top 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of what we'll do. So yes, there's going to be a portion of it where it's going to be internally picked, but that's, if it's completely
it's still based on,
we just get one
it's still
person pick some random flavor. It's not
still completely voted on. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what, so basically, while you have a shitload of things coming this year, that protein in September sounds like it's going to be
it's going to be cool.
It's going to be a beast. You've got flavors, you've got something unique that you haven't said about. There's going to be an ingredient that hasn't been in a protein before. Dare I say, it'd probably be the launch of the year for Nutra Innovations, which is,
I hope so.
It's a tough one. Protein is a hard one to crack, but I think, like you said, these days the unique little features and highlights are really what helps sell these proteins, as opposed to having like a 10-pound bag for $70-$80 like 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Well,
that's it, man. It's all about trying to just do something interesting, and because like for me, I hate to harp on it, but quality, like in terms of testing and things like that, like that's the law. So everyone should be doing it. Not to say that everyone is doing it, but it's one of those things that you should expect from every supplement company. I think that formulations, I'm not worried about, just because, and you haven't tried any of the products yet, right?
Not yet, no. I imagine I will be soon.
Yeah, I'm going to get a package out to you so you can give them a shot, just so you can you'll understand more where this conversation is coming from when you actually try the products. But it's definitely something I'm not worried about in terms of, formulation quality. So it's really about how we can be creative on every other end of things.
Yeah, I think there was someone that told me years ago, he was from a big brand, and he said that 3 things: you got marketing, cost effectiveness and value, and then product quality, like formulations and stuff like that. He says usually, almost always, if someone's nailing 2, they ain't nailing the 3rd.
Exactly.
And he says if you nail all 3, then it's not going to be as good as someone who's smashing 2 and not the 3rd. And I think you just got to find balance. It's that balance that establishes and identifies a brand. By the sounds of things, you'll have the formulations. I think you'll have almost all 3 covered, and it's just going to come down to you whether or not how good they're going to be. It sounds like the formulations will be on point already, and then the marketing and the value is going to come into it. So it sounds like it's going to be a hell of a year. Again, it's just cool because you very rarely see a brand that comes up on my radar that's as extensive as you already are. And the doubling of the line seems difficult to do, but I mean, you seem pretty confident. Again, you have the manufacturer on your side, so it seems very achievable.
Yeah, it's achievable. And don't get me wrong, there's a couple of products in our line that we may look to discontinue and things like that that aren't, what I consider the future of the brand. So although we're going to be introducing almost the same amount of SKUs we already have, we may be getting rid of some next year. Yeah, but again, because we're a manufacturer and because we're vertically integrated, it also doesn't hurt us like it would hurt other brands to keep things that don't sell as well. You know what I mean? Like if you're a brand that's contracted out and you're holding inventory that's not moving, it's painful on you. Yeah. But for us being a manufacturer and not having to hit massive minimums and things like that with our own products, it's not much of a give and take for us to just keep some things that certain people want, or if we're making international formulas and things like that, it makes it a little easier on us. So obviously
the ability to just
and if you speak to any other brand that manufactures their own products, it's always a double-edged sword, because it's more efficient and easier to do things like I'm talking about, but the responsibility level is 10 times higher. So I mean, if you saw what we posted yesterday with our Tudka lab tests, like constantly making sure that everything's third-party tested and everything works, and following GMP guidelines and things like that, and just having a manufacturing facility and hiring for it in general adds responsibility that I would say that 75% of brand owners would never want anyway. Yeah. So it's for those of us that can do it well and keep it going, it's a blessing. But for those that think like, oh, I'll just start manufacturing my own supplements, they're probably going to be a bit surprised when it doesn't go as planned.
Yeah. So. Well, it's been awesome chatting with you. It's awesome catching up. Thank you for coming on. It's great to basically sound like the brand's about is got a shitload lined up for 2021, and I look forward to seeing it all.
Cool. Hey man, I appreciate the time, obviously.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on.